everybody, welcome to my channel. My name's Mel. Thank you so much for joining me today for a Roll of Reads Readathon announcement. Yes, you did hear me correctly. I am so excited to be announcing to you all that I will be hosting a readathon based around Roll of Reads. Roll of Reads is my TBR game that I play every single month in order to determine what books I will be reading throughout the month. And in March, I would like to invite you all to join me in a game of Roll of Reads. Because March is my birthday month, I thought that it was the perfect time to host this readathon. I would like to say a really big thank you to Crystal from Bon Book Reviews, who unknowingly has inspired me to run this readathon during March, like I said, because that is when my birthday is. It's on the 15th of March to be exact. My Amazon wishlist is in the description below, just in case you might want it. Also, before we go any further, I will mention that anyone like Crystal or anyone else that I happen to mention in this video will be in the description below, along with all of the documents and various pieces of information that you will need in order to take part in this readathon. Alright, so let's go through and talk about all the things that you'll need to know in order to participate in the readathon. So first of all, it is going for the entire month of March. So it will start at midnight when it ticks over to March the 1st in your time zone and go through till midnight when it ticks over into April 1st in your time zone. So midnight to midnight, 1st to the 31st of March in your time zone. The second thing that I want to share with you, and I think that you'll all be really excited about this one, I certainly am, there will be a giveaway as part of this readathon. At the end of the readathon, when I do the prize draw, so the giveaway will be entries into the prize draw, and then at the end of the month I will draw 2 names out of the entry pool, and those 2 people will get a book sent to them. They can choose which book they'd like sent to them through Book Depository up to 25 Australian dollars. So make sure that Book Depository ship to your location, but providing that it does, then you will receive a book if you are one of the 2 winners of the giveaway. The giveaway winners will be announced on the 4th of April. It will be announced actually on the Twitter, and I will let you know what that is in a little moment, but it's definitely in the description below. So the winners of the giveaway will be announced on Twitter on the 4th of April. You have until midday on the 3rd of April, which is 3 AM on the 3rd of April GMT or Greenwich Mean Time or British Standard Time, midday Australian Eastern Daylight Time, so my time zone, to submit those entries so that you can then be put into the giveaway, which will be announced on the Twitter for the readathon on the 4th of April. So, how do you enter the giveaway? There are 2 ways that you enter the giveaway. First of all, for every single book that you read, you submit the form, the tracking form, and that is in the description below. It is just a standard Google Docs tracking form. You'll need to let me know your name, so it can be your name, or it can be an email address, or it can be your Twitter handle, or whatever you want, but make sure that every time you submit an entry it's the same one so that I can make sure you get the right number of entries into the prize pool. Every time that you finish a book, you submit that entry. The other way that you will get entries, you'll actually get 2 entries per TBR that you announce. You can announce this pretty much anywhere on social media, so on Instagram, on Twitter, on TikTok, on YouTube, it's up to you. So every person that uploads a TBR will receive 2 extra entries to go into the entry pool. Like I said, you can upload this to Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, YouTube. Make sure that you use the hashtag or the account name for the readathon, and like I said, I'll get to that in a minute. Especially if you have uploaded to TikTok or YouTube, you will need to go through to the Twitter and make sure that when you announce either of those things that you use the hashtag for the readathon so that I can find it and add the entry. Because everyone gets 2 entries for their TBR announcements. So as I keep saying, the readathon has both a Twitter and an Instagram hashtag. So Twitter is at rollofreads2022 and the Instagram hashtag is hashtag rollofreads2022. I'll be using the Twitter account throughout the month to update you on information, let you know when things are going on, how everyone's going, all of that sort of thing. So do make sure that you're following the Twitter account so that you can keep updated on everything that's happening for the readathon throughout the month. So like I said, it's in the description below. You should have seen it in the titles. There will be regular reading sprints throughout the month. These are potentially subject to change depending on what's going on in life in general and in particular in my working schedule. I'm filming this at the very end of January. It's going to go up at the beginning of February, so it could change. But at the moment, I will be running reading sprints every Sunday evening for the month of March, starting on the 13th at 8 p.m. Again, this is Australian Eastern Daylight Time, which translates to 9 a.m. BST or Greenwich Mean Time. So that is Sunday evenings, 13th onwards throughout that entire month of March, every Sunday evening at 8 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time. And then I will also be running every Friday morning, so starting the first Friday of March, which is the 4th of March. That will be from 9 a.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Time, which is 10 p.m. BST or Greenwich Mean Time on Wednesday evening. So Wednesday, the 3rd of March, if you are in the UK or the US or quite a bit of the rest of the world. If you're in Australia or New Zealand, then it will be in your time zone, but it will be Friday morning. For us in Australian Eastern Daylight Time, it is 9 a.m. Friday morning. Every Friday morning for the month of March. Like I said, that is subject to change, but I will make sure to announce any changes that are coming up on the Twitter and also remind you guys about when they are happening on Twitter as well. Okay, it's now time to explain what Roll of Reads is all about, how you participate, how you play, etc, etc. I have included the playlist for Roll of Reads in the description below, so you can go and watch that if you want to get a bit more of an idea, if you're a visual person and you need to watch the game as it happens. So first of all, you need a game board. This is a board that is like this one here with 20 spaces on the board. As you can see, if I move it around, you do need 20 spaces on the board. I have actually created a game board in Canva that I will link in the description below, so you can go ahead and print that out and use it, or obviously use it on a tablet or something like that if you want to as well. It's up here so you can get an idea of what it looks like, but basically you need a board with 1 to 20 spaces on it. You can also create your own board and make it look however you want to. That's up to you as well. You'll also need the prompt cards. I have created an entirely new set of prompts for this particular version of Roll of Reads. I have made the prompt cards in Canva as well, and they are linked in the description below, so you can go and print those out. I'm going to go through all of the prompts and explain all of the prompts at the end of the video and show you what each individual prompt looks like, but just so you know that you do need the prompt cards in order to play the game. You can as well create your own prompt cards, but you have to use the prompts that I've made. So you can make them look however you want to, you can illustrate them yourself, whatever you like, but you have to use those prompts to be able to participate in this Roll of Reads readathon. You also need a 20-sided dice. You can, of course, use an app instead of a physical 20-sided dice, but however you access the dice, it has to be a 20-sided dice. Alright, now it's time to go through the general rules and then I'll talk you through the gameplay. So first of all, the rules are based loosely on Dungeons and Dragons, specifically the way that you use a 20-sided dice to roll combat throughout Dungeons and Dragons. What that means is if you roll a 1 in D&D in combat, it's a pretty bad thing. You do something like drop your sword, fall over, punch yourself in the face. So it's not a great thing to have happen. In this game, if you roll a 1, then you have to add another roll. If you roll a 1 more than once, then you just have to keep adding rolls. So every time you roll a 1, you add a roll. On the flip side of that, if you roll a 20 when you play D&D, when you're in combat, this is a fantastic roll. We call it a crit, and it basically means that everything is going perfectly. You get a critical hit, so if you're using a sword, for example, you stab them straight through the heart. You do double your damage. So for this reason, in the game, if you roll a 20, you basically get to do whatever it is that you want. You still need to have a prompt on the 20 space on the board. So you can have a look at that card, and if it suits you at the time, then you can still go ahead and use that prompt, but you can choose just to ignore the prompt completely and do whatever you want instead. So if you have a buddy read or a book club read, then you can use that, or you can decide to make it a mood read and pick it throughout the month. It's essentially a wild card. So if you roll a 20, do whatever you want, basically. So, like I said, in honor of Dungeons and Dragons, if you roll a 1, not great, you've got to add a roll. If you roll a 20, it acts as a wild card and you can do whatever you want. To help you remember that, on the board that I've created, I have put an arrow pointing down on the 1, like a uh-oh kind of arrow. On the 20, I've put an arrow pointing up, like a woohoo, yay, well done kind of arrow. So that's just to give you a little visual aid to help you out. In addition to those 2 rolls, if throughout the game you roll the same number 3 times, so at any point throughout the game you roll the same number 3 times, it doesn't have to be concurrent. Once you get to the 3rd time, you have to add another roll as well. So those are the rules. Let's now go through and talk about the gameplay. So once you have got yourself ready, you've printed out the game board or created one, you've printed out the prompt cards or created them, you've found yourself a 20-sided dice or an app or something like that, you're ready to go, then you need to shuffle your cards and place them on each of the board places, so 1 to 20. The next thing that you need to do is decide how many rolls of the D20 you're actually going to do. I do this by rolling a D8, and whatever I roll, that's how many rolls I have to have, but you can do that in whatever way you want. Maybe you roll a dice, either a D8 or some other dice, a D6, a D10, whatever you want, or you just have a standard amount of books that you like to read throughout the month, so you choose to go for that number of rolls. That's up to you, but the next thing you have to do is decide how many rolls and therefore how many books. Next up is your first roll. So get your D20 and roll it. Whatever number you get, you pick up the card on that space on the board, and whatever that prompt is, that's what you need to use to decide the book you're going to read. Like I said, I'll go through all of the prompts once I've gone through the gameplay. Replace the card, so you should have placed your extra cards somewhere near the board, and you replace the card that you just picked up with another card, then repeat. Keep doing that until you have done either all the rolls that you're supposed to, or you've gotten yourself extra rolls because you rolled a 1 or you rolled the same number 3 times. You just basically keep doing it until you've done all the rolls that you're supposed to do, and you've found your prompts and you have decided what books you're going to read. When I make my videos, my TBR videos, I do it so that I have roll, come back, talk about the book, roll, come back, talk about the book. You can do it that way when you're making your TBR, or of course you can just roll them all at once and then decide. That's up to you as well. But yeah, as long as you do the rolls to decide the books you're going to read via the prompts, it doesn't really matter. Also, you can actually do this throughout the month. So if you would rather, you can do your first roll and then decide your book, and then once you've read that, come back and do your second roll. That's okay as well. When it comes to submitting a TBR so that you can get those 2 entry into the giveaway, then you just need to do the first roll on film or have it on Twitter or Instagram so that I can see that there's been some kind of nod to a TBR that you're participating in the game, make sure to let us know in that TBR that you're rolling as you go, and that will still count. The other way that you can participate in the game, if for whatever reason it isn't possible for you to get access to a board or create a board, get access to the cards or create cards, you can choose to do the same roles that I do when I do my TBR game. So I will be doing this TBR game with these roles so I can also be part of the Readathon. I will be doing that towards the end of February, and the video will go up on the 23rd of February. So if it's easier for whatever reason and that's what you'd prefer to do, then you can wait until I upload that video. You can watch that and then you can do the prompts that I do. But that means, of course, that if I end up with extra roles I have to do, you'll also get extra roles. So if that is something that is easier that you prefer to do, then go ahead and do that. That's an alternative way that you could do that if you want to participate in the game. Alright, so now I'm going to go through all of the prompts for you. Some of these prompts are fairly self-explanatory. Some of them need a little bit of explanation as to either what you do or why I've chosen them. So I'll go through all of that for you in just a moment. Like I said before, the prompt cards are in the description below, so there is a Google Doc to the file and you can then print that out or just have a look at it and create your own cards provided you use the prompts. So like I said before, that is an option. If you want to do your own cards, you can, but you have to use the prompts that I created. If you don't use the prompts that I created, then you aren't participating in this readathon. There will also be a Google Doc in the description below which goes through and explains all of the prompts. So all the information that I'm about to give you will also be in that document, so you can go ahead and check through when you're doing your TBR so that you know what it is when you come to that prompt, just to help you out a little bit. So these are just in the order that I created them and wrote them up. Obviously when you actually do the game, you will be shuffling them, so they'll come up in whatever order they come up in when they're randomized via a shuffle. So we'll just go through in that order. I do have the computer here with all that information, so I will be looking down a little bit. Alright, so the first prompt that we have here on the screen is a favourite author's first book. So pick a favourite author, find their debut novel, and read that book. It can be a reread. If you absolutely can't get your hands on their first ever novel that was published, then the next book that they published after that is okay as well, but the idea is to read a favourite author's debut novel. Next prompt is a booktuber's favourite book. So pick any booktuber that you'd like and have a look and see if you can find what their favourite or one of their favourite books are. Most booktubers have end of the year favourite book lists. Most booktubers have favourite books of all time videos that they've made. So have a look on their channels and see if you can find something like that and pick a book that they have said is one of their favourites. The next prompt is read a book that was published in the 1980s, so anywhere between 1980 and 1989, and that's because I was actually born in 1980. The next prompt is read a book by an Australian author. As you can probably tell, I'm an Australian, so you need to read a book that was written by an Australian author. It doesn't have to take place in Australia, but it does need to be written by an Australian author. I will be doing a recommendations video where I talk through a bunch of different Australian authors and some of the books that they have written to help you out with this prompt. The next prompt is to read a book by an Indigenous author. In honour of Australia's First Nations people, read a First Nations author. They don't have to be Australian, but it'd be cool if they were. The next prompt is BIPOC author. So BIPOC stands for Black, Indigenous, Person of Colour. So for this prompt, you need to read a book that was written by somebody who identifies as Black, Indigenous, or a person of colour. The next prompt is LGBTQIA+ representation. LGBTQIA+ refers to lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, queer, intersex, asexual, and then plus anywhere within that umbrella. The book that you choose needs to be representative of the LGBTQIA+ community. I highly recommend that you double check Own Voice's reviews of the book that you've chosen to make sure that it is in fact a appropriate representation of the LGBTQIA+ community experience. The next prompt is to read a book that is set somewhere that you have been. This can be anywhere you've been. It could be the place you grew up. It could be the place you currently live. It could be somewhere that you went on holiday to. It could be somewhere that you just did a brief stopover on your way to somewhere else. As long as you've been there, you can read a book set there. The next prompt is to read a book that is out of your comfort zone. So this could be a genre that you don't read, a format that you don't normally read, an age range that you don't normally read, so on and so forth. As long as the book is out of your regular comfort zone, read that book. The next prompt is to join in an online book club. So there are so many online book clubs around. Lots and lots of booktubers run book clubs. I myself run the Last to Read book club with my friends Ellie from Elle Grey Books and Lana from Lore and Lullabies. We will be reading Caraval throughout the month of March, and we would absolutely love it if you would like to join us, just in general, but if you get this prompt, then obviously feel free to join us to read Caraval throughout the month of March. There are, like I said, a number of different book clubs that you could join if you get this prompt. So the idea is to encourage us to join in an online book club. If you've got one that you really want to join in and just haven't managed to fit in the books for whatever reason, now's your chance. So like I said, there are many. The few that I'm just going to quickly let you know about that I can think of that I have had something to do with myself is the Recreate Book Club, and that is hosted by Becca from the Becca Fowl, Rachel, I believe, from Rattle the Stars, and Ashley from Ashley's Media Addiction. I can't remember what book they're reading in March, but I will put their channels in the description below so you can go and check out their announcement videos. There is also Chloe's Crime Scene Corner, run by Chloe over at Chloe Reads Books. Again, I don't remember what they're reading for the month of March, but again, you could choose to join that one if that interests you at all. Also, Chloe's channel is linked in the description below. There is the Eurovision book club, and that is run by Helen from Helen's Bookhaven. Also don't know what March's book is for that, but I will link Helen's channel in the description below so you can go and find out from her as well. Like I said, there are so many other book clubs that you could choose to join in on. So this is a prompt that will encourage you to go and find one of those book clubs and read whatever book they're reading throughout the month of March. And like I said, I would absolutely love it if you chose my book club, the Last to Read book club. The information for that is also in the description below. The next prompt is treat your shelf. This one's pretty easy. Buy a book and read it in the month of March. Then we have randomize a genre pick. So basically you need to decide on a bunch of different genres, randomize it in some way, and whatever genre you come up with, then you read a book from that genre. I personally use one of those spinny wheel apps, a bunch of different genres on the spokes, spin the wheel, and then choose a book from the genre that comes up. So that's an option that you could do as well. It's up to you what genres they are. Next prompt is to read a book that is set somewhere that you have never been. So this is the opposite of the set somewhere you've been. So this is a book to read a book that's set somewhere you have never been before. This can include another planet or a fantasy world. Next up, we have Mel Recommends. So read a book that I have recommended. So I have actually made a playlist of all the different videos in which I recommend books in the description below. So for this prompt, you need to read a book that I recommend, and those are the places to go and look for books that I love and would therefore recommend. Next up, we have the prompt, incorporate another readathon. So we all know that there are always so many readathons going on. I can think of at least 2 readathons that are happening in the month of March already, although I don't actually know very much about them because I've kind of been thinking about this a lot. But anyway, I'm sure there are going to be quite a number of readathons happening at some point, if not for the entire month of March. So this prompt allows you to incorporate a prompt from one of those readathons and then read the book that you've chosen for that readathon. Because we all do that, we all try to make sure they all work for each other's readathons, so I just thought, why not make it a little bit easier for all of us, and yeah, that's the prompt. Next up, we have the prompt for a family member / your partner picks a book. Pick a family member or your partner, get them to choose a book for you. Then we have friend picks, which is pretty much the same thing, but instead of it being a family member or your partner, it's a friend. The next prompt is to read a book with a main character who is over 30. Now, I am actually in my 40s, and I was thinking about making it so that they had to be over 40, but then I thought that could be a little bit tricky for people, so I've made it that it has to be over 30. But basically that's because it's my birthday month. And then we have read a children's book, and that can include a middle grade. So a picture book, a chapter book, or a middle grade. This is because I'm a primary school teacher, so I read a lot of children's books, and I thought that it would be fun to get you guys to do the same. Then we have the prompt to read a borrowed book. You can borrow a book from the library, a friend, a family member, provided it's a book that you don't own that you're borrowing from somewhere or someone else, read that book. Next up, we have a book / an author, so it can be one book that was, or a book written by an author that is on a bestseller list. The bestseller list could be the New York Times bestselling list, or the Sydney Morning Herald bestseller list, or the Sun Herald bestseller list, or any other newspaper or news organization that does a bestseller list. As long as the book won a place on the bestseller list at some point, or the author of the book you've chosen. It could be for a different book, but the author is a bestseller as well. The next one is to read a book that was mentioned in the Gilmore Girls. So the Gilmore Girls is one of my favorite TV shows of all time. One of the main characters, Rory, is a massive reader. They talk about books a lot on the show. So read a book that they mention in the Gilmore Girls. There is a BuzzFeed article where they list all the books. I think there's like 240 books or something like that that were mentioned in the Gilmore Girls, and I've linked the BuzzFeed article so you can go and check that out and find a book. But yeah, read a book mentioned in the Gilmore Girls. Next up, we have the prompt to read a book that was gifted to you or that you got in a subscription box. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Next up, we have the prompt to read a book that you're intimidated by. You can be intimidated for any reason whatsoever. Basically, it's just all about getting out of your comfort zone and reading a book that you're a bit intimidated by. Next up, we have the prompt inspired by mythology or legends or folklore. So I love legends, mythology, folklore, all of that sort of thing. I actually studied Greek and Roman history and mythology and religion in my undergrad degree. So any retellings are fun for me, particularly when they're Greek or Roman, but of course from any legend, folklore or mythology, as long as you read a book that is inspired by or a retelling of, it works. Then we have the prompt to read a book that was on a previous TBR that you didn't get to. We all have these books. We put them on our TBRs and we just don't get around to them. Oftentimes we don't come back to them for quite a while. So this is your opportunity to come back to one of those books and read it. Next up, we have featuring, or on the cover, a magical or mythical creature. And I'm actually going to read directly from what I've written here. There are some unusual animals here in Australia. Some have even taken on quasi-mythical status. So I thought it would be fun to reference them. For this reason, if you can find a book with an Australian animal instead, that will totally work too. Otherwise, a magical or mythical creature. By the way, Tasmanian devils, platypus and echidnas do exist. Bunyips and drop bears don't, as far as we know. Tasmanian tigers used to exist, but they are now extinct. But there are legends that suggest that might not be true. Next up, we have takes place on an island. So read a book that takes place on an island. This is because, as I've mentioned, and as I'm sure you know, I'm Australian. So Australia is an island that has an entire country on it. I live in Tasmania, which is the island state at the very bottom of Australia. So, in honour of all of that, you have to read a book that takes place on an island. The entire book doesn't have to take place on an island. It could be just a section of the book, but it must have at least a bit of the book that takes place on an island. It could be an island like Tasmania that is a state or a province or a county of another country. It could be an island that is its own country. It could be an island that is within a lake, so it's just, like a little island in the middle of Lake Michigan, for example. However it is that you choose to work this make sure it's on an island, you're good. Next up, we have a book that you're excited to read. Any book that you're excited for whatever reason. Then we have mood read. So either pick a book that you're already in the mood for, or leave it as you go through the month, I'll just pick a book that I feel like reading. That's up to you. Next up is nostalgic vibes. So for this, you need to read a book that gives you nostalgic vibes. Again, this could be interpreted however you think it works. So it could be that it is written the year that you were born, or set the year that you were born. Maybe it is a historical fiction about a period of time that you're really interested in, or it could be a favorite childhood book. However it is that makes sense to you, that gives you nostalgic vibes, read that book. Then we have the prompt, mental/physical health rep. So health is an area that is sorely misunderstood and often misrepresented. So for that reason, you're going to read a book that features mental or physical health representation. Again, just like I said for LGBTQIA+, please do check out Own Voices reviews of the book that you've chosen, to make sure that it is appropriate for this prompt. Then we have plus size rep. I don't normally reference it or talk about it, but I am plus sized, so read a book that has plus size rep. Then we have the prompt, a beautiful cover. Read a book that you think has a beautiful cover. Then we have the prompt, non-fiction, so read any non-fiction book that you feel like reading. Next up, we have favorite genre. So this time you need to pick your favorite genre to read and choose a book that is in that genre. You can be as specific as you want or as broad as you want. So if your favorite genre is urban fantasy, then you can choose an urban fantasy, or you could just say fantasy and choose a book that is under the general fantasy umbrella. Then we have second chance. Read a book that you put down in the past and now you are coming back to and giving it a second chance. Next up, we have the prompt to read an indie or self-published book. Again, I'm just going to read directly from my notes. It's easy to get caught up in all the hype of the special editions and special releases the bigger publishing houses can do. Let's not forget the smaller publishers and those that self-publish. Their work can be amazing too. So read a book that was published by an indie publishing house or self-published. Then we have translated. So again, I'm going to read directly from here. Any book that is translated into a language that you read, as long as you're reading it in the language it was translated into from the original language it was written in. So for example, you could choose a book that was originally published in English and then translated into another language, as long as you read it in the language it was translated into. So for example, if you read a book that was published in English but translated into Spanish, if you read Spanish, you could choose to read that book in Spanish. Or you could choose to read a book that was published in a non-English language and then translated into English. Yeah, you can go either way, but you have to read the book in the language it was translated into from the original that it was written and published in. So don't pick a book that was written and published in English, has been translated into another language, but you read the English version. That doesn't count, for example, because the idea behind this is to broaden our horizons a little bit. Then we have the prompt, buddy read. So buddy reading is pretty big here on BookTube. I love buddy reading. I know a lot of us do. So organize a buddy read. For those of you that don't actually know what a buddy read is, you basically pick someone that you'd like to read a book with, you pick a book together, and then you settle on a time frame. So say the entire month of March. You read the book. You can read sections at a time. So you could read, say, 5 chapters every week, and then you organize a time at the end of the week to chat about it, or maybe you just text each other as you go. However it is that you want to organize it, you essentially read the same book with another person and talk about it as you go along. The second last prompt is buzzword. So the buzzword challenge is a year-long challenge that is created by Kayla from Books and Lala, and the idea is that there is a word or a type of word that must appear in the title, and every month has a different buzzword. For March, the buzzword is a location, so it can be as specific as the city of Paris, the country of Germany, or it can be something a bit more general like a river, a lake, etc. I will link the announcement video where Kayla talks through all the different buzzwords for this year and lets you know more about how you can make it work. But basically, read a book that will fit into the buzzword challenge for this prompt. And then the final prompt that we have here is randomize a country pick. So, similar to the genre randomize pick, select a bunch of countries that you're interested in reading books either by authors from that country or set in that country, or both. It can be any countries that you like. It can be as many or as few as you like, as long as there's as long as there's about 3, because otherwise it's, doesn't really work. And then randomize it in some way. So again, you could use the spinny wheel, or you could do some kind of list with random number generator, however it is that works for you. Randomize a country pick. It would be cool if you maybe picked some countries that you don't very often read from or have never read from, just again to broaden horizons a little bit, but again, that's up to you. So those are all the prompts for the Roll of Reads Readathon that you can have come up on the board. Like I said, all of the information that you need for the readathon is in the description below, so please go ahead and check that out so you can participate in the readathon. Please do let me know if you have uploaded a TBR. As I said, it could be on TikTok, it could be on Twitter, it could be on Instagram, or it can be on YouTube. If it's on TikTok or YouTube, please make sure you go to the Readathon Twitter and use the Twitter handle so that I will know, so I can add your name to the prize pool twice, because like I said, each TBR announcement will get you 2 entries into the giveaway. Also, for every book that you read, you will get 1 entry into the giveaway. The tracker for the book entries is in the description below as well, so you can get that information and submit your entries. So that is everything that you need to know to participate in the Roll of Reads Readathon that is happening throughout the entire month of March. If you have any questions, please go ahead and put them down in the comments below, or go and talk to me over on Twitter. Any questions at all, big or small, I would definitely be there to answer them, because I really want people to join me on this readathon. I'm super excited to see who is going to participate and to give those 2 people who end up winning the giveaway their books that is valued at up to 25 Australian dollars on Book Depository. So yeah, that's it from me today, guys. Like I said, I'm super excited. I'm so happy to be bringing this readathon to you. Like I said, also, all the information that you need is in the description below. Don't forget to jump on and join me for any of those reading sprints that you would like to. If you would like to be a co-host with me on any of those reading sprints, I'm thinking of potentially having myself and up to 3 other people on those reading sprints. If you'd like to join me as a co-host, please comment below and let me know when you'd potentially like to join, and then I'll let you know over on Twitter when it is and everything like that. So please comment all of that below. If you have any other comments that you'd like to make, please do so down below. If you would like to leave me a comment but you don't know what, then leave me the celebratory emoji with the little party hat, because I am really excited to celebrate my birthday by doing this readathon with you all. All of my social media details and all of the readathon's social media details are listed in the description below. So if you'd like to go and follow me, and more importantly the readathon, on any of those platforms, please feel free to do so. Thank you all so much for watching. I'm really excited to see who is going to participate in this readathon, find out what books you're reading, what's your TBRs, all of that stuff. So yeah, thank you so much for watching and for participating, and I'm going to sign off now. So thank you again, and I will see you next time.